This anime series is a continuation of the story from the SAO Alicization anime. In the previous series, Kirito defeated Quinella and saved Alice from the influence of Quinella's control. This anime shows the last scene where Kirito fell unconscious due to an electrical short that occurred at the Rath company after an attack carried out by armed forces. Alice, who had woken up from fainting, saw his condition, already badly injured and unconscious, so she tried to wake him up by repeatedly calling out his name. After getting no response from Kirito, Alice panicked and started crying, worrying about his condition. Not long after, Berkeley, the Integrity Knight's commander, approached her and asked what had happened. It turned out that after Eugeo died, Berkeley had managed to escape from his ice trap so he could survive. After hearing Alice's story, Berkeley gathered all the Integrity Knights still alive to be on standby to guard the city's borders to protect the residents from the attacks of the Dark Territory troops. He informs them of the death of Quinella, or the leader of the cathedral's central church, so they must now use their own power to protect the city. Meanwhile, Alice was still trying to heal and treat Kirito inside the cathedral church. However, after discovering that other Integrity Knights still consider him a traitor, she decides to take him to Rulid Village so that she can take care of him in her house. Unfortunately, when Alice is about to take Kirito to her house, her father, the village leader, refuses to accept Kirito in his house because everyone in the village considers him a traitor. Luckily, an old man named Barbosa allowed Kirito to stay at his inn for some time. Although, as a condition for staying at that place, Alice has to work cutting trees every month without getting paid. After getting to the inn, Alice met her little sister, whom she had not seen for the past few months. Even though she doesn't fully remember Selka and her family, she is still happy with Alice's return to their village. Every week, Alice goes to the forest to help Barbosa cut down the trees while continuing to carry Kirito with her in a wheelchair. The reason why she wanted to keep an eye on him was that she was afraid that the villagers or other Integrity Knights would do something bad that could threaten his life. Alice realized that right now, everyone in the underworld hated Kirito so much and considered him a traitor that she had no choice but to keep an eye on him all the time. One night, an Integrity Knight named Eldery came to Alice and invited her to return to the cathedral church with other Integrity Knights. However, she refused the invitation and kept Kirito until he had fully recovered. In the middle of the night, when Alice was about to lie down beside Kirito, he suddenly screamed, thrashing as if he had a bad dream. It turned out that he could sense the arrival of the Dark Territory troops attacking the border of Rulid Village, so he kept trying to take his sword to save the villagers. Seeing his delirious condition, Alice decided to go to the border and protect the residents of Rulid Village. When Alice arrived at the village border, she immediately ordered all the villagers to evacuate to a safer place because soon there would be an army of goblins from the Dark Territory who would invade their village. At first, her father and the other villagers ignored her orders because they thought Alice was just a child who did not know anything. But after she showed her a night robe and told everyone that she was a member of the Integrity Knight, all the villagers, including her father, immediately obeyed her orders. After all the villagers left that place, Alice began to fight against the existing goblin army with all her abilities. She is determined to fulfill Kirito's wish to protect the people of the underworld from the attacks of monsters from the Dark Territory. Therefore, she decided to rejoin the cathedral church to help the other Integrity Knights fight the enemy forces from the Dark Territory. The scene switches to the real world, where the United States military special forces discuss their plans to steal AI technology from the Rath company. They sent a man named Gabriel Miller to lead this heist operation by infiltrating the Rath company and several other armed soldiers. The main reason why U.S. military forces are so eager to seize the Rath company's AI technology is so they can develop unmanned combat robots so they don't have to sacrifice humans in the experiment. The U.S. military forces know about AI technology and the Alicization project because they have received leaked information from one of the staff of the Rath company who has betrayed. At first, Gabriel refused to carry out the mission, but after he learned that the Rath company had developed a soul translator machine that could be used to dive into the virtual world, he immediately changed his mind. Gabriel is so obsessed with STL technology that when he does surgery, he will immediately try to use the machine. The day before the infiltration, Gabriel met his online game friend Vesego Castle, who can fight like military troops. He got to know Vesego because he was one of the top players of an online game called Gun Gale Online, and he even ranked first on the GGO leaderboard. As for Vesego himself, he is one of the top players in the Sword Art Online game who is obsessed with killing other players. In fact, while in the SAO game, he once founded a guild called Laughing Coffin, which is famous as a PK or player killer guild. The next day, Gabriel and Vesego attacked the Rath company headquarters with several armed soldiers and managed to infiltrate the main control room. Fortunately, Asuna, Kikuoka, and the rest of the Rath company staff had moved to a backup control room facilitated by high security and enclosed by steel doors. Gabriel couldn't detonate the steel door with a bomb because doing so risked damaging the main light cube. He decided to use another method, namely to dive in using the STL machine and try to find Alice's fluctlight, which was their target. Gabriel and Vasego dive into the virtual world of the underworld using a super account named Emperor Victor and the Dark Knight, who is the leader of the Dark Territory army. At the same time, Asuna wanted to dive into the virtual world to be able to pick up and save Kirito, who was still unconscious in the underworld. Initially, Kikuoka prevented her from diving in because the current conditions in the underworld were unstable, so Asuna and Kirito could be trapped in the virtual world. But she remains determined to save Kirito and dive in using a super account named Goddess Stasha, or the Goddess of Creation. In the underworld, Goddess Stasha has the special ability to manipulate or create things using the ground. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Vasego, who had successfully dived into the underworld, were immediately greeted by the troop leaders from the Dark Territory. Gabriel, as the king of the Dark Territory, immediately ordered all the troop leaders to prepare their respective troops and invade the human world where Kirito and Alice were currently. He announced that soon the barrier between the Dark Territory and the human world would collapse, and when that happened, they would all have to move quickly to attack the human world. But he warned the entire army not to attack or kill the Priest of Light or Alice. On the other hand, Alice had arrived at the Integrity Night camp with Kirito, who was still unconscious. At the campsite, the two little girls who had accompanied Kirito and Eugeo at the academy tried to visit Kirito and Alice's tent. Alice said that at this time, Kirito was not fully conscious or still AFK, while Eugeo died after he managed to kill Quinella the other day. Hearing that, Roni and Tise couldn't help but cry because they couldn't meet again with Eugeo, who had guided them. The next day, Berkeley gathered all the Integrity Knights, including Alice and all the church soldiers. He explained that when the human race fought against enemy forces from the Dark Territory and the border area, they would not be able to regenerate or heal. Hearing this statement, she volunteered to help the troops with her special powers. It turns out that Alice can absorb life energy from the soul of someone who has died so that when the battle occurs later, she can channel the life energy back to the human troops who are still alive. After all, even though the strength of the human race was far superior, they had to continue to be careful because the number of troops from the Dark Territory was far greater. After all the weapons and troops were ready, all the Integrity Knights began to leave for the battlefield in the border area. The Integrity Knights participating in this battle are Berkeley, female General Finatio, Alice, elderly, Julsulber, the twins Fazel and Linel, and two talented female knights named Renly and Shada. Before leaving for the battlefield, Alice said goodbye to Kirito because she wasn't sure if she could return safely from the battlefield. When the Dark Territory's border gate had fallen, the battle between the Dark Territory's army and the human race's army began. The battle was very fierce and tense because many soldiers from each died on the battlefield. Seeing the number of troops that had died, Alice began to use her power to absorb the life energy of the soldiers who had died and gather it into her sacred sword. After successfully increasing the power level of her holy sword, she immediately launched the strongest attack on the enemy troops, killing thousands of enemy soldiers. Seeing the magnitude of the attack power possessed by the troops of the human race, Gabriel ordered the army of dark witches to do the same at the cost of the souls of the orc army. At first, the leader of the orc army named Lilpulin objected to the decision, but because this was an order from the king, he had no choice. When he saw half his troops and his girlfriend die for the sake of sacrificing their souls, Lilpulin became angry and increasingly determined to take revenge on the human race. After performing a short ritual, even dark witches can cast hundreds of magical attacks into the territory of the human race army. When Eldery saw that the magic attack was about to hit Alice's body, Eldery moved quickly and sacrificed himself to protect her. He was willing to fight to the death to be able to withstand the hundreds of magical attacks and protect her, the girl he loved so much. When Alice saw Eldery was killed by a magic attack from a dark witch, Alice became very angry and attacked all the dark witches with the strongest attack. Gabriel discovers that the person who issued the attack is Alice, and he becomes even more obsessed with her. He orders the remaining troops to capture her without harming her. Fortunately, Shada was willing to hold off the Dark Territory's forces for the time being so that Commanders Berkeley and Alice had a chance to escape to a safer place. Shada is one of the Integrity Knights who is very talented and has a great usage ability so that she can easily defeat the incoming enemy troops. Until the moment when Shada met one of the strongest warriors from the Dark Territory named Champion. The battle between them was so fierce that her iron armor was destroyed due to the sheer power of Champion. However, after a long battle, Shada decided to withdraw from the battlefield because, from the start, she only intended to buy time until Alice managed to escape. Unfortunately, some troops from the Dark Territory were still moving towards the borders of the human race's territory, so Berkeley had no choice but to fight against the enemy forces alone. On the other hand, Vasego started to attack the Integrity Night camp area where Kirito and his two escort girls were resting. When Vesego defeated all the guards and was about to kill Roni, a bright light suddenly appeared above the sky. It turned out that the light came from Asuna, who had successfully dived in using the super account, Goddess Stasha. Asuna used her power to create a very deep hole where Vesego was standing, so he was killed by falling into the very deep bottom surface. After that, she created a large chasm at the edge of the human race's border so enemy troops from the Dark Territory could not cross into the human race's territory. Thanks to her help, Berkuli and Roni could survive the attacks of Vesego and the enemy forces. Before Vesego died and logged out of the virtual world, he realized that the person who became Goddess Stasha was Asuna, so he believed that Kirito was in that world. After creating a large chasm, Asuna descended to the edge of the camp in the forest to find Kirito's whereabouts. When she met Roni and Tisei, she immediately asked about Kirito's current location. After finding Kirito, Asuna immediately hugged him very tightly, and he, who felt her presence, began to shed tears of joy. When she left him, Alice immediately attacked Asuna, thinking she was an intruder who intended to harm Kirito. But not long after, Berkuli came and immediately interrupted the two of them while explaining that Asuna had saved him from the Dark Territory troops. Berkuli was certain that she was not an intruder and could not possibly have any intentions of harming Kirito. That night, Asuna asked Berkuli to gather the other Integrity Knights because she had something important to say. In the Integrity Knight meeting, she explained the real and virtual worlds they live in. She told them that she had to take Alice's fluctlight to the world altar because Alice was considered the first fluctlight to break the Index's book and break free from the Index's book system. Hearing this, Berkuli mentioned that those who violate the Index's book will receive a red eye seal in the virtual world. Asuna, who had never known about the red eye seal, was surprised that the Rath Company had never created such a system. It was against the Rath Company's main goal of wanting the underworld residents to violate the Index. Asuna assumed that there was currently a traitor among the staff of the Rath Company who had hacked into the underworld system. But for now, she had to focus on her mission to take Alice to the altar of the end of the world so that Kikuoka could secure Alice's fluctlight. On the other hand, Gabriel and the remaining Dark Territory troops were trying to cross the huge chasm that Asuna had created. He even ordered Champion's troops to sacrifice themselves so the other troops could cross the chasm more quickly. After Berkuli and the other Integrity Knights heard that some of the enemy troops had successfully crossed the ravine, they immediately rushed to break the bridge's connecting ropes and defeat the troops entering the territory's border area. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Vesego's comrade, Critter, who was in the main control room, began to change the time ratio in the underworld to 1:1 so that other players or users could still enter the underworld without the need to use the STL machine. After changing the time ratio, Critter spread the link from the virtual world of Underworld to social media and announced that Underworld was an online game that had just been released. In his narration, he emphasized that in the game, all players can kill enemies with a real sword/effect as if they were fighting in the real world. As a result, many people register and log into the virtual world of Underworld because they think that Underworld is just an ordinary online game without realizing that Underworld natives also have consciousness and feel like ordinary humans. Yui is Kirito's AI assistant, and Asuna realized that there was an attempt to dive into the underworld by more than 5,000 new accounts, so she immediately contacted Shinon and Lifa to inform them of the situation. Shinon and Lifa decided to go to the Rath Company's branch headquarters and dive in using the STL machine at the base. After they got permission from Kikuoka, they dived into using super accounts named Goddess Salus and Goddess Terraria. At the same time, Yui contacted Kirito's game squad consisting of Klein, Silica, Lisbeth, and the Elfheim online game group to help them. Fortunately, the Elf Army, the Half-Cat Human Army, and the Sleeping Knights Guild members in the ALO game were willing to convert their accounts to help Asuna and the others. The scene returns to the underworld, where the human race troops fight against the Dark Territory troops. During their battle, the 5,000 new users from the United States had successfully logged into the underworld and began brutally attacking everyone. The 5,000 users not only attacked the Dark Territory army but attacked the army of the human race because they considered everyone as an enemy to be eliminated. Seeing his troops being brutally killed, Champion felt very disgusted and intended to rebel against the king, Gabriel, so he could withdraw his troops. But instead of caring about the Dark Territory troops, Gabriel prefers to capture Alice, whom he has been after. After fainting Alice with poisonous smoke, he immediately led her to the altar of the end of the world using his dragon. Berkuli, who saw this, immediately rushed after Gabriel to save Alice. Meanwhile, one of Champion's eyes began to turn red because he was determined to defy King Gabriel's absolute orders. After removing his own eyes, Champion jumped across the huge chasm Asuna created with the help of his comrades. When Champion arrived on the other side, he asked Asuna to help create a bridge in the middle of the abyss so that his troops could escape the brutal attacks of foreign players. At first, she refused to build the bridge, but after receiving Shada's advice, she built several bridges across the ravine. After the Dark Territory troops successfully crossed the abyss, they decided to join forces with the human race to fight against the thousands of US users who attacked them. Not only that, the human race troops received help from Shinon, who had dived in using a super account, namely Goddess Saluz, with a holy arrow weapon that could defeat thousands of troops in one attack. After Shinon managed to defeat the thousands of players who surrounded Asuna's army, Shinon came down and approached her to inform her that she would help Asuna complete the mission. On the other hand, Vasego, defeated by Asuna in the previous battle, finally regained consciousness after being unconscious for 8 hours. Because he could not log in with the account that had died, Vasego asked Kirito to convert his account from the SAO game so that he could able to log back into the underworld. Vasego will dive in using the account of the Laughing Coffin guild leader named Po, so that he can find Kirito in the underworld because he still holds a grudge against Kirito. Back to Asuna and Shinon, who went to the camp to see Kirito and make sure he was okay. After that, Asuna asked Shinon who could fly fast to find Alice and take her to the world altar. When Shinon had managed to dive into the underworld and met Asuna's troops, Lifa got lost in the Dark Territory while diving and using Goddess Teraria's account. At that moment, one of the orc army leaders named Lilpalin found Lifa and threatened to bring her in front of the king of the Dark Territory, or Gabriel. But when he was about to take her to Gabriel's kingdom, a female witch named Dil suddenly appeared and immediately attacked Lifa to snatch the soul energy from her. One of Lilpalin's eyes began to turn red because he had disobeyed Gabriel's order to attack the human race, including Lifa. Unfortunately, even though Lilpalin's determination to defeat Dil was very strong, he could still not defeat her, who had absorbed the energy from Lifa. Just as Dil was about to kill Lilpalin, Lifa, who was previously thrown to the ground, suddenly rose and immediately attacked her with a very strong attack. It turns out that Lifa, who dives in as Goddess Terraria, has a special power to regenerate with the energy she gets from the ground. That means Lifa will continue to regenerate as long as she still steps on the earth or touches the ground, so it can be said that she has the power to live forever. Since that incident, Lilpalin and Lifa made peace with each other because they had saved each other. On the other hand, Berkuli died after he managed to defeat Gabriel and save Alice from Gabriel's attack. She couldn't help but cry after seeing the lifeless body of Berkuli and continuing to ignite herself for letting herself be captured by Gabriel. Not long after, Shinon came to Alice and invited her to go to the world altar so the battle in the underworld could be stopped. Even though King Vector or Gabriel has died, he can still get back up if he re-logins using another account. After hearing Shinon's explanation, Alice hurriedly went to the world altar by riding her dragon while Shinon would stand guard at the place to hold Gabriel if at one time he re-login. Meanwhile, in the real world, one of the Rath company's technical staff, named Higa, realized that there were nerve waves in Kirito's brain that were reactivated when Asuna and Shinon visited him. That means if they copy the fluctlight from those closest to Kirito, like Asuna and Shinon, they will most likely be able to resuscitate him. But to do that, Higa needed access to the main control room's main server to hack into the underworld system. Upon hearing this, one of the male staff of Rath company named Yanai offered to help Higa sneak into the main control room. At the same time, Gabriel, killed by Commander Berkuli's attack, was finally forced to log out from the underworld and return to the real world. He then asked Kirito to convert his account from the GGO game so he can log back into the underworld because his mission to capture Alice is still not finished. However, when Gabriel logged back into the underworld, he met Shinon again, so the battle between them was unavoidable. After a fairly fierce battle, both of them were seriously injured. Gabriel decides to escape from that place and continues his mission to find Alice. On the other hand, Lifa finally came to the battlefield with Lilpalin and the remaining orc troops to help the human race troops defeat the US users who were still appearing. But after a very fierce battle, the Integrity Knights and Asuna's troops began to be overwhelmed because the number of US players who were attacking had far more members. Asuna fought alongside other Integrity Knights to protect Kirito and the underworld natives from the brutal attacks of US players. Fortunately, Kirito's game squad consisting of Klain, Silica, and Lisbeth came with hundreds of ALO game players to help underworld troops fight US players from the real world. After the arrival of reinforcements from the ALO game squad led by Asuna, the underworld troops seemed superior to the real-world player forces. However, when Vasego had successfully logged in with Poe's account, which was known to be very strong with hundreds of players from the Laughing Coffin Guild, the underworld troops began to be overwhelmed to defeat the enemy troops. After successfully cornering the underworld troops, Poe or Vasego immediately forced Asuna to reunite him with Kirito. She had no choice but to bring Kirito, unconscious, in a wheelchair in front of Vasego. Before killing Kirito, Vasego hypnotized all the players from the real-world army to kill each other so that he could collect life energy from the dead players. He absorbs that life energy into a large axe that has always been his mainstay weapon to kill Kirito. But while gathering energy, Asuna started to get desperate and attacked him with a very strong attack after she received the power support from Yuki's spirit. While inside the Rath Company headquarters, Higa and Yanai had managed to catch up to the main console room to save Kirito by copying Kirito's friend's fluctlights into Kirito's light cube. However, when Higa was about to do that, Yanai suddenly shot him with the gun he had hidden all this time. It turns out that Yanai is a Rath Company staff who has betrayed and leaked information about AI technology to the US Military Forces Organization. Yanai is the one who has helped Quinella in creating the Red Eye Seal system so that she can become the only strongest person in the underworld. And the reason why he wanted to stop Higa from resurrecting Kirito was that Kirito had killed his beloved Quinella during the battle that took place in the Cathedral Church Tower. Fortunately, Higa managed to fight and made Yanai fall off the very high console bridge so he could continue his mission to save Kirito. After Higa succeeded in copying Shinon, Asuna, Lifa, and Eugeo's fluctlight into Kirito's fluctlight, Kirito was finally able to regain consciousness from AFK mode. After awakening, Kirito immediately froze all the players from the real-world army using Eugeo's broken sword. Vasego, who saw that Kirito had returned to his feet, immediately attacked him with all his strength. Fortunately, Kirito overcame Vasego's attack after the spirit of Eugeo helped him and returned the Blue Rose sword to its original intact sword. After the Blue Rose sword returned to its original state, Kirito immediately killed all the players from the real-world army so that they would automatically log out from the underworld. When all the players died, Kirito's Demon Tree sword absorbed the player's life energy so that his sword could become stronger. With the two strongest swords in the underworld, he can easily defeat Vasego and turn him into a Devil Tree. After successfully getting rid of Vasego, he immediately healed the underworld residents who had been injured and thanked all the ALO players who had helped him. Remembering Alice was still in danger, Asuna and Kirito immediately rushed to fetch her from the world altar. On the other hand, after Kirito realized that a Japanese military force would soon capture him, he immediately started programming to change the time ratio in the underworld to 1 in 5 million. That means 1 second in the real world is equivalent to 1 year in the virtual underworld. Kirito did this on purpose so that Gabriel could catch Alice more quickly before the Japanese military forces came and surrounded them. As a result, all ALO players who log in using the Atmosphere tool will automatically exit the underworld virtual world. The same thing happened to Shinon and Lifa because they dived into using an STL engine with a lower version than the STL engine at headquarters. However, it differed from Asuna and Kirito, who dived into using a high-level STL machine that could keep them trapped in the underworld for 200 years. After arriving in front of the steps of the world altar, Asuna brought Alice to the altar while Kirito fought Gabriel. Fortunately, Kirito managed to kill him after channeling all the Devil Tree's power into Gabriel's body until he was overloaded and eventually exploded. After defeating Gabriel, Kirito went to the world altar to confirm that Asuna and Alice had logged out of the underworld as the current 1 to 200 year time ratio had passed. But it turns out that Asuna chose to stay in the underworld to accompany him, who was trapped in the virtual world. Then they started their life together in the underworld, while Alice's fluctlight, who had logged out, was now secured by Rinko Kojiro. On the other hand, Kirito then decides to escape from the Rath Company headquarters while taking Gabriel's corpse with him. However, what is still a mystery is the disappearance of Vasego's body from the Rath Company headquarters so that Kirito can only bring Gabriel's body. After Kirito left, Higa and Kikuoka and the rest of the staff company staff immediately rushed to the main control room to get Kirito and Asuna out of the underworld. After awakening to the real world, Kirito asked Higa to erase his memories and Asuna's memories so they could recover their consciousness. Higa started erasing Kirito's fluctlight memories with the STL machine, but without him knowing, Higa secretly copied Kirito's fluctlight and hid it. After that incident, the Japanese government decided to close all activities of the Rath Company so that other countries would not feel threatened. Even the government broke the news that Kikuoka had died while protecting the secrets of the technology developed by the Rath Company from US military intruders. In fact, the Rath Company is still running in secret, and Kikuoka is still alive today. Although it has been controlled by the government, Kikuoka will continue to fight to seize the Rath Company from the hands of the Japanese government. The anime concludes with a scene where Higa accidentally reactivates Kirito's fluctlight and finds secret access to the underworld. He gave the access information to Kirito so that he and his friends could visit the underworld, which is currently developing like human civilization in the real world. This is the end of the anime. The moral that can be learned from this anime is to not betray people.